Okay, diet. Like, I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a sports nutritionist, but I'm in contact with a lot of sports nutritionists, or a few sports nutritionists. And during COVID, it was an area of my game. I identified, usually people come to me and they'll say, oh, I'm running a 3:03 marathon. I want to get under 3 hours. And I'm like, you can already do it. And we use round numbers. And so when it was COVID, I thought, okay, I had a number in my head at an age that I was going to retire from running at. And I was like, well, I absolutely love every single day of the week. It never feels like work. I want this to continue for as long as possible. So how can I improve in my running to get better so I'm still competitive, like well after the age that I thought I would retire at? So I began to look under the bonnet and look in different areas, and people were a lot more easy to get at during COVID. So I was able to speak to sports nutritionists, I was able to speak to exercise physiologists, I was able to speak to sports psychologists, strength and conditioning coaches, and there was 8 different areas. I can always only remember, like mobility was another one, but that's 5, and there was 8 different areas that I could improve at. And my thinking was, if I can improve just 1% in each one of those areas, and if you think about it, another one was biomechanics, so that's 6. So if you think about it, if you can improve your strength in the gym, and you've got stronger glutes, then you can improve your biomechanics because you can improve your stride length. Then you can improve your blood, your exercise physiology. You can improve that, and so you can move. You can have a longer stride length, you can keep the same cadence, and therefore obviously you can go faster over the same distance. So that power from your glutes is also improving your biomechanics. So it's, what I'm trying to get at is it's an exponential benefit if you can just move 1% forward. If your diet's improved, it's going to improve your strength, that kind of thing. Yeah, so there's a relationship between pretty much everything. Obviously, sports psychology, I feel like I'm pretty robust in that area. I feel like I love what I do. When I get to the start line, I see the anxiety, I feel the anxiety around me. Everyone's nervous because they've been training for so long and they need a result in order to show the sponsor. For me, it's like, this is a party. We've done the training, we've done the hard work, this is the celebration. So it's like being let out of a cage so you can go and run. So I feel as if I'm pretty tough in that area. What I found out, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, as I regularly do, but what I found out from sports psychology, a sports psychologist, was my problem is not kind of like, am I motivated? And this is during COVID, remember? So there's a lot of people that were sort of coming to me like, I don't have any race on the agenda, everything's been cancelled or postponed. What am I training towards? For me, it was the opposite. It was like, right, now's the time to work on my game. So when speaking to a sports psychologist, the problem that I had and the problem that I needed to kind of look after was, I needed to hold myself back. I needed to, because I didn't have a coach, or I don't have a coach. I'm kind of like one of those people who does too much, so they want to get too fit, and that essentially is down to either you love the training, you love the process so much, which is part of it, but there's also a part of that is a lack of confidence in your own ability. So I didn't really know that about myself, and I did kind of now it's pretty obvious, but I would always try and sneak in fitness by doing that extra session, doing that instead of trusting in the process and getting on the start line 90% fit and just giving yourself a chance, and knowing that, you know, your competitive instinct is so strong within me that if I'm at 90%, I've got a chance of winning any race. So I learned things like that. But when it came to diet, I've been following I had, up until that point, I've been following a vegan diet since 2015. So 2015 to 2020. I was following, I think it was 6 years, but I was following a vegan diet. So that had kind of come from being here in Chiang Mai, where I am at the moment. Vegan restaurants everywhere, vegan cyclists everywhere. So a lot of the conversations you're having are around food. And it kind of drove me a bit nuts, because vegans are very like, you're either with us 100% or you're not with us. And I feel that that's the wrong way to go at veganism. I feel that, like, definitely the world's a better place if we're eating less meat, but we're not going to get everybody to change overnight. So I feel that there should be more of a conversation. It should be like, and the way that sort of I got into it was I was cycling with my good friend now, who I've known for sort of 8-9 years, Vigard, and we were just cycling one day, and I knew he was a vegan, and he'd been a vegan for quite a long time, and he was a top level cyclist, and we were just cycling. He'd never mentioned his diet, he'd never mentioned veganism to me, and I just asked him one day, why do you feel, why do you, no, I just asked him one day, why do you follow a vegan diet? And he said to me that he believes that animals have just as much right to live as we do. And it was such a 21-year-old kid, and it was such a profound it had such a profound impact on me that was like, gee, I grew up with animals all my life. We had so many dogs in my house. My mum bred dogs when we were kids. So there's a point in my life when we had 50 dogs in where we lived, and it was just nuts. And that's like, 10 main dogs and then 4 litters of puppies, I think it was. But I'd always grown up with dogs, and my family had always loved animals. My dad had a goat as a kid. We had different animals, and it just sort of like clicked. And then I was like, okay, well, now's the perfect chance to try it. And then I asked him about kind of how he feels it, etc. And so I started to follow a vegan diet. And what I found, I initially was vegetarian because I was still drinking milk, I was still eating eggs. And what I found is big impact in the recovery and the energy once I'd cut out meat. I was already not eating red meat once I get to Thailand, but I cut out chicken, which I was eating a lot of chicken. And then I cut out eggs, and when I cut out dairy, that was the biggest impact. That was the part where there's a relationship between dairy and inflammation, and my recovery just got much better. So I was able to train harder, and my energy was very, very consistent, and I was able to recover quicker, which meant I could train harder more frequently, which meant I could improve more. And I saw a big improvement. And so that initial kind of getting into veganism for the ethics then became, well, actually, this is really working for me from a sporting performance perspective as well. So it just kind of like, and then since then, when I spoke to a sports psychologist in 2020, then she told me that she looked at my diet and she said, you know what, it's pretty good. It's a lot better than a lot of vegan diets I've seen. That I was basically getting the proteins that I was getting from, all you need to really do is have 400 grams of dry beans, like lentils, garbanzos, chickpeas, that kind of thing. 400 grams, combination of 3 of those, and you're probably good to go on your amino acid profile. But the only advice that she gave me to add on to what I was already doing was to once a week eat red meat, to get the vitamin B12. And that's what I started to do. And it was a weird experience because, I was here, I remember going for my first steak after it was at least six or 7 years since I'd eaten a steak. I went for my first steak, and it's just something that I put into my diet, and I've definitely seen, it's hard to tell when lots of other things are going on, but I've definitely seen benefits, and I've definitely seen help since then. So I'll give you, all I can do is I can give you my diet, and if that works for you, or if you can take something from it, then that's perfect. But I'm not going to go too much into, I'll put on the screen, I'll make a diagram so you can kind of see the breakdown of the macronutrients, etc. But I follow a couple of philosophies. So first thing in the morning, five days a week, I will do my training on a fasted training. Whether I'm out doing an easy run, recovery run, or cycling, that will always be fasted. The only time that I'll have the breakfast that I'm going to have before a race is on the interval session, which is usually on a Wednesday, and on a long run, which is usually on a Sunday. That's the days when I have a breakfast an hour before I'm about to run. All the other days is fasted. So I don't eat for the first 2 hours of a day, which is me kind of priming my metabolism to burn fat instead of glycogen as a primary fuel source. Simple as that, yeah? And that takes time to build up. It's not going to happen overnight. And if you try to do it, and if you're used to eating before you run, you're going to feel hungry for the first couple of weeks before you run. And then naturally, we're just brilliant at adapting. We're not used to eating as much as we are. So we're used to eating kind of like every 7 days, every 10 days or something like that. Back in caveman days, and now we have so much convenience that eating is just an addiction. It's as simple as that, right? There's a lot of little little things here, but hopefully it makes sense. Then what I'll do is I'll have my first breakfast. Now my first breakfast will be 5 bananas in almond milk, nuts, seeds, so linseeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, and cinnamon. And then that will be in almond milk, bit of ice, and that will be my first breakfast. And so that alone, I'll put the calories on the thingy, but it's about 700 calories per smoothie. And I have 3 of those in the day, and 2 of them have got almond butter inside, which is extra calories, which is protein, etc., etc. So in addition to that, I have a scoop of pea protein, which is 25 grams of protein after the session. And it's not that you need to get protein in that quickly after your session, more to do with restocking your glycogen levels, which is more to do with putting sugar in and carbohydrates, but it definitely helps muscle and muscle damage repair and that healthy function, etc., if you have within 4 hours of your training session. And the harder the session, the more important that is. Then an hour to an hour and a half after that, depending on how hungry I am, I'll have my second breakfast, which is 100 grams of dry weight 100 grams of oats. And that will be with all the good stuff. So there'll be honey, there'll be different berries on there, and then there might be a little bit of almond milk. So overall, it comes to about 400 calories. And then I'll have about an hour and a half after that, I'll have another smoothie. And then I might have a siesta before that. I might get up and then have another coffee, and then have a smoothie after that. Once I've done my training, if I do another training. And then I'm into my lunch, like after dinner, after lunch, so it'll be kind of like 3, 4, 5 o'clock. I'll have something there, which is, it's not a big meal, but it's a substantial amount of food. And I'll have my last meal at around between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. And then I'll have a smoothie again if I get really, really hungry. So it could be between 3 and 4 smoothies a day, usually 3 smoothies a day plus 3 meals, so 6 meals a day. And then whilst I'm out and I'm doing a long session, if it's an interval session or if it's a long run, then I'll have more on. I'll use the 320 gel, which is 80 grams of carbohydrate per 500 mil. Take one of those per hour, so 80 grams of carbohydrate, and the different types of sugars. I can't remember, maltodextrin and all those different stuff, but sodium, etc., etc. And then I'll take gels along the way to break that up if I'm doing a long run. So that is pretty much my diet. Really works for me. Where do I get my protein from? It's from the lentils, the chickpeas, the garbanzos, the red beans, the kidney beans, the black beans, that kind of thing. It's also I eat a little bit of tofu, especially when I'm here in Thailand. But one thing to add is I'm not like, I don't try to lose weight. Like, I'm big now, like, so I'm in 4 weeks time, 5 weeks time, I will be a lot smaller, and that naturally comes off as a byproduct of training. And that's the way you need to see it, that it's naturally coming off. Don't try and cut calories and try and be on a calorie deficit if you're hard training as well at the same time. It's a recipe for disaster. It's got to come off, and it will come off as a byproduct. It really helps if you can fast first thing in the morning. If you can be fasted overnight and do the first couple of hours training, that easier. The recovery runs and the stuff on the bike, if you can do the first 2 hours easy, that's going to shred your fat. And I'm obviously carrying a little bit of extra muscle here, but that'll all come off. Like I was just looking at pictures the other day and just thinking, how big am I and how much do I need to lose? And it's not just weight. It's kind of like I have a little bit too much muscle structuring, but when I look back at photos and videos from last year, the previous year, COVID years, when we did a lot more filming, there's a lot more running up the mountain, pretty much the same at the start of the season, and then all of a sudden it starts falling off, and it just falls off so easily. I think it's really easy to go up and down in weight. I find it really, really simple, just because of the amount of training that we're doing. If you're doing like 6, 7, 8 hours of training a week, it's all about timing. It's about timing at you train. It's about hydration, and it's about when you eat and how much you eat. It's that simple, really. I stick away from bad foods. I don't eat a lot of sugary stuff and things like that. I do have dark chocolate, but it's at least 70%. It's usually 85%. That's it.